day, dude, I feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
All right, we're joined again by one of my now developed good friendship that me and Bertrand are now building up to as well. But usually, as you guys know, if you're definitely listening to the podcast, yeah, we've had a couple guests that we've had on 2 different times. But Bertrand, you might have set the record for how quickly we had you back on again as well, which I think is, part of our just ongoing, conversations and, and continuing to develop some of the, and this has actually led back to the conversation I wanted to start with you today, because one of the things that we were talking right before we start recording, I was saying one of the things that I really admire about Bertrand, and one of the things that kind of pulled us together immediately was he kind of talks about an appreciation for complexity, right? And I noticed that in him. He noticed that in me back as well. And that's one of the things too. I have this appreciation for you, that you appreciate, complexity. But one of the things I know that a lot of coaches struggle with is that idea behind, what it is to have a mind that's free to explore new ideas. Maybe you're hung up on old ideas, or you're having issues. One of the biggest things that I see that people have issues with learning is more so the mindset and where they're deciding from and what's going on and freeing their brain. So I wanted to kind of bring this up for you too, Bertrand, to expand on this. Obviously, one of the main reasons too, if this is your first time listening to Bertrand, I'll let him kind of touch on this too as well. This is our second episode, and not too far out. So I wasn't going to get into his whole backstory, all those things as well, because he on our last podcast really expanded on those things as well. And I want to kind of use this to go even deeper, right? So in any case, yeah, Bertrand, definitely give yourself like a brief introduction, but also too, if you want to hear his whole back coaching story, all those things prior, go listen to our previous podcast. And then I'll let you also, Bertrand, expand on the question that I kind of just brought up too.
Yeah, of course. Okay, thanks for about your stats concerning the appearance of people in your podcast, but there is a need. I think there is a need to talk about what we are in common, which is motor development, motor acquisition skills, motor coordination, natural movement, what we call natural movement, motor signatures. Okay, so that was my passion since 1989, when I finished biology in Lausanne University and started to jump in another world, which was physical education, because my heart was saying, stay on the pitch, don't stay in the labs. So I followed my intuition, which is my main function, the intuition, and I don't regret the fact that I chose that path. First of all, because I could really develop a lot of things. And I could also link theory and practice and theory, starting from practice, which is very important, because the theory is as important as practical things.
Yeah.
But if you start with experimenting and doing things, and I was coaching volleyball, so on a daily basis, like a professional one. So which means I could use what I was looking for. I could just search among the players that I had under my responsibility, very young players to very experienced players. So the fact is, we co-developed the approach, the action types approach, with my friend Ralph, which was also doing the same in France. I was in Switzerland. Okay, so this exchanging, the fact that I was not alone. And that's also in my motivation, not to be alone when doing something important.
Yeah.
Because you expand your scope when you can partner with somebody, and somebody that is very complementary to me. Okay.
Yeah.
For example, if I explain about my functioning, I'm very, very comfortable with concept. It's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
And my creativity zone is practical, which is I can be on a pitch. and I will design any exercise you need in a few seconds, because I have that ability to jump from concept to practical things.
Mm.
Ralph, my friend, Ralph Hippolyte, was on the contrary very comfortable in his vision, idealistic vision, what he was looking for, and his creative zone was a conceptual one, which is
Yeah.
he was combining everything we discovered with everything else and discovering even more,
Yeah.
which means we were very complementary, because when we are exchanging, we could really move forward together. So that was the first thing. And concerning I mean, the people that didn't listen to the first podcast, I encourage them to go also there, because
Yeah.
it's a 2 hours 50 minutes, I think,
Yeah. It
exchange
was
with
like a
our
3 hour
friend
podcast.
Passion.
Exactly. Yeah. We went into
Yes,
some depth
almost
there.
almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we had also Prashant Patel, the guy from London, playing cricket.
Yeah.
That
And
that
Steve.
that, that was a link between you and me.
Yeah.
Okay, and he presented me your academy of your way of functioning, and it's why also we got in contact.
Agreed. Yeah. No. And I wanted to bring that up because one, I recognize it in other people because, again, you can get into a state, it doesn't matter young or old, where you start just defending a hill, is what I call it, right? You're defending a hill instead of looking for solutions now. And I think sometimes they can mimic one another, but even now, I see just through new information, conversations that you and I have had, your openness to continue to expand what how you see in training and all those things and what you can take from different places. So what do you think for you in that way, and what do you think that is for you? Like what do you think, how does your mind even today still stay open to information even though you've learned so much over the years? What do you think that is for you that kind of keeps your mind so open?
Oh, because I think from a long time already, I know that I don't know,
Yeah.
which means I am 63. I have a lot of experiences, and we discovered a lot of things. But uh, we need, when we discover things, it's just we take the carpet and we see what's under it, okay, and which means the carpet is infinite.
Yeah.
So more you roll the carpet, more you discover. And even at 63 this year, I will be soon 63 in December.
Mm.
I'm very curious because I know my life will be too short to discover what is left.
Yeah.
There is a huge amount of things that is waiting for us, and I need also to find the people that will continue to do that, because it's an infinite story. I mean, human
Yeah.
beings on the planet is an infinite story.
Yeah.
So we need to be very humble. We need to be very humble in terms of what we do, and that combined with some curiosity is an engine that doesn't need any fuel.
Yeah.
It's it's a
Love
it's a
that.
it's a perpetual movement.
Yeah.
So it's easy to go there.
Yeah, that's funny that you brought that up because I've mentioned that a couple times that one of the main foundational blocks to learning is you have to have a base of humility, right? Like if you already think well, there's nothing to learn. If you think
Finish.
you're an excellent communicator and there's no more to know, well, then you're never going to work on that, right? If you think you know everything there is about the
Yeah.
body, you're not going to go looking for anything new. So that curiosity, that humility, I think, like you said, I think are huge. But it's things that again, even in our last couple years of knowing each other, like that's definitely something that I picked up on you quite a bit, and I kind of wanted to ask that question because I know that a lot of younger coaches or even a lot of older coaches that have experience, but I've heard this quote a long time ago where experience isn't the best teacher, evaluated experiences, and it's like you could have a lot of
Yeah.
experiences, but if I don't sit back and reflect and make adjustments and evaluate that experience, just going through things in it of itself is not going to teach me things. I have to evaluate those experiences and then reflect on them and then make adjustments based on those. And I think that that's a big thing that I see that you constantly do, and you're even now consistently learning. And I wanted to kind of point that out and give you the space there to talk about it. And the question I was actually going to bring to you, because you actually brought up earlier that you and Ralph are so complementary. Where would you say when you and Ralph in that way and how you guys complement each other? When you guys, I see it, and I even see you now. When you guys challenge each other, what does that look like, and how is that turned into you guys discovering more? Right, like how do those conversations look like behind the scenes? You know, Ralph finds something, you find something, and you guys have come to each other over the years. How are those conversations happen, and what do they, kind of give us a behind the scenes what those conversations look like?
Okay, it's a nice story anyway, but I'm going just a bit back on the knowing things, because I'm not sure I did that in the first podcast, which means when I was responsible for the Swiss coaching education, French speaking first, during 17 years for the Federal Sports Office in Switzerland, and that was a mandate given by Swiss Olympic, so the Olympic movement of Switzerland, given to the sports office, the Federal Sports Office. I was always welcoming the new coaches that were coming to our courses, which was the highest level you can have in Switzerland. At some point, I was always telling them, no, thinking is not knowing how to think.
Mm,
So you have to think about it. It's something that is quite circular,
yeah.
because of anybody listening to us can just imagine they were talking to somebody else, and that person, you give that person something very important for them, and they just answer, "Oh, I know."
Hmm.
Okay, they just close the conversation because, okay, if you know, but you don't know my point of view. You may have the information, but it doesn't mean you know. Okay, information and knowing, this is something completely different. As you said before, you need to integrate and to validate things from your point of view, which is very important. And Ralph and myself, we had two very different point of view. I was coming from a very scientific background, and he was coming from more general psychology, history, philosophy approach.
Mm,
Okay, with coaching. And of course, we were very complementary because we really looked at things completely differently. So when he was coming with an idea, I know he was like me, very intuitive. When he was coming with an idea, I was always challenging the idea. Okay, which means, okay, if this is true, then. And then, of course, that was on the court, on the pitch. And for him, that was very important because it was for both of us the reality factor, which is if we discuss about something, we discover something, it has to work on the court. I mean, not after 1 hour or two, but
yeah.
right away. In a few
Mm,
seconds, it has to work because our main principle was like natural movement. The body knows how to move. Okay, like you don't learn to breathe, you let that emerge. Okay, you liberate the movement. The movement is already here. It's an automatic movement. It's already here. Okay. And for us, we had also influences about other authors that were saying you cannot learn a movement. You let it emerge. You let it liberate. It's potentially here in your body and brain and mind and everything because it's possible. Okay. If it's possible, potentially it's there. So
mm,
we were always challenging ourselves, discussing, okay, if you are right with that, then if I do that and that and that on the court, I will see this and this and this. And that was always the process we had,
mm,
which is our first discovery was exactly like that in 98 with linking the center of gravity with the muscle chains and the frontal part and the basal part of the brain
yeah.
and the human function. That was something that if we are right with that, and if I create a posture with my player, then they should do ready in that posture and not ready in the other one. And that was the beginning of profiling.
Mm,
Okay. Yeah. If I put them in a posture that suits them right away, they are ready, which means their body is fully adaptable, is available. Okay. If I ask them to do something with that posture, they will do. But
mm,
if I put them in another one, then they will struggle to integrate what I'm saying and they will struggle to adapt because it's not ready to express. So there's many ways you can do things in anybody. Okay, we had those 4 patterns that we are talking about already in the first podcast, and everybody can do the 4, but only one can speak at the same time.
Yeah.
Which means it's a complex, as you said, it's a complex system, and of course it took a lot of time for us to understand that, because at the beginning of our discoveries, which is last century, we were like, okay, a bit simplistic in our way of thinking. It's a bit like the people that are now encountering motor signature and preferences, because they are too simplistic in the way they think, because they think black and white about movement. No, there's a lot of shade of grays.
Yeah.
And you need to respect the readiness, the availability of the body when you do something, which is something that is very important for us, is adaptation to context. Okay. And the adaptation is via what you call bodily and contextual intelligence,
Hmm.
which means we have a contextual intelligence because we can adapt to what is around us according to our inner state of readiness. Okay. We don't go for ready-made solutions. Ready-made solutions, they don't work. Okay. Because they don't take into account all the parameters, all the constraints of the players, and all the constraints of the environment. You think you know, you go for a ready-made solution. Okay, the person will do it because it's an adaptation person. Okay, but at some point, it doesn't mean they will perform. Okay, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean they will do their best,
Hmm.
because you go for an outside solution. We think technique is coming from the inside, which is I have to let it express, let it go, let it out, and this is just by ensuring that the person is using his strengths at the moment, what is ready at a certain moment, and at the same time, what is ready now may not be ready in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So I need always to have some kind of ecological mind, saying things are always moving. You cannot have twice the same environment. You can have twice the same context.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, we have rules, we have the games, we have the constraints, we have the framework where we are playing, but the way we integrate that, the way we live that up to the game is changing every single minute, even every single seconds. So of course we have a comfort zone where we will have most of our conscious experience, but it's not always where we will be. Because when you come up to the money time, you may not be in the comfort zone anymore because you are stressed. Okay, you think you have to win, or you have to do that, and you have to succeed, and you have to. Every time you go for have to, you have like an expectation. You're already under stress.
Yeah.
Okay, you create stress in your mind and body.
Hmm.
So if I have to do something, I'm not ready to do it,
Yeah.
and that's the key thing. Okay, what do you want to do? That's the other thing. That's your thing that is very important for me. What do
Mm.
you want? What is coming from the inside, not from the outside? Because the have to is coming like constraint from the outside. The
Yeah.
coaching staff, the public is saying you have to, like a non-verbal thing. Okay, I know I have to. Okay, but at the same time, if I just let myself um, be influenced by what they are saying, I will not be ready to do that because I will not create the best possible condition for my expression because I'm not listening to my body. I'm listening to the other guys, and I am not ready to do whatever is necessary to win. So
Yeah.
I need to integrate things so that I want to do that from my inner core, and I want to do that, and then I'm completely like coherent with my mind and my body. I'm aligned with what I think and what I can do.
Yeah.
And that's very important for people to understand
Yeah.
because it's not black and white, not at all.
Yeah, and I wanted to cut in right there. So also too, what Bertrand's talking about here too as well. So as you look deeper into muscle chains and also look into the CNS and how it activates, or accesses or expresses through certain of these muscle chains, we've said it forever. Coaches know that when players are in the right mindset, they play better. We know that empirically from being around players and coaching, but what he's explaining is that when we actually look deeper into the body, there is real science behind what we're experiencing with players, right? And some of the real science behind that, right, is that when we're in the wrong states, right, if we're, my mother just passed away, or, again, spiritually, I'm not in a good place, or mentally, I'm not in a good place, or I have all these high expectations on myself, and, mental health wise, where right now we have a lot of mentality coaches, which again, that's part of it. Mentality is also something that's important. But also, as he's mentioning too, I might have all these stresses because my coach is really, man, if I don't get a hit right now, I'm out of the lineup. I'm not going to play anymore. I'm not the starter, or et cetera. Right. And now, as we look kind of deeper into the body, and we actually, the CNS is actually one of the areas, especially here in the States. It's very complicated, and we like things to be very simplistic, like, this muscle action does this or whatever. But the CNS and coordination and how we coordinate, underneath stress and time pressure and all these other things is very, is a very complicated process, and there's actually layers to that where we've experienced this as coaches, but there's actually science behind performance and our ability to and our readiness to respond to external stimulus. So that's also kind of some of the bigger things that he just brought up, and I kind of wanted to lay that out as well, as I know that every coach can connect with that they know if they get their player in a better state of mind, that they tend to perform better.
Yeah, and I was complementing that. Because from a scientific point of view, we know that we cannot replicate things. Okay, in terms of human movement and coordination, human motor patterns, we cannot replicate. We have fundamentals, but we cannot replicate things. It's why if I want to play, I have to stay. It's what I call online. I have to stay online with the context, online with my body, having the information coming from the body and the posture, online with what is happening outside, and online with the exchanging between what is happening outside and inside, in order to cope with the adaptation that I need to do. And
Yeah.
that online thing, be in the present moment, a lot of people talk about that, but they don't know most of the time how to do it.
Yeah.
And I think the only way to do it is just by trusting what you do.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to have trust. You need to have trust. And I say to the players, I was working with, to the coaches I was also educating, if you trust, you will learn, because you will learn from experience and the differences. If you doubt, you will never learn, because you never know where the problem will come, from where the problem will come. So I say, no doubt, you may make a mistake, no problem, but no doubt allowed. Go for it in terms of experience, 100% staying online with what is happening. And trust, for me, in yourself is the first thing to start with. And
Yeah.
okay, of course, people
Love
can
that.
say, how do we trust ourselves?
Yeah.
And it's very easy. It's very easy, in fact, because when I'm talking about that, the solutions are always quite simple. It doesn't mean everybody will do it right away, but the fundamentals are quite simple. If I want to trust myself, I have to eliminate all conditions that my mind is creating.
Yeah.
All conditions. No conditions. Okay, I'm here, point. It's me and the context. It's me in the context. No conditions. There is no if, there is no but, there is no, I don't know what. Okay. I am completely online and in line with myself.
It's funny that you said that, because one of the things that me and Cody talk about quite a bit is that one thing that we notice with athletes is, now when I'm coaching an athlete, I can pick up when they've made a rule in their head. They have to do it
Yeah.
this way. They need to do this. you know, like their grandfather told them when they were 6 that this is what they needed to do. And so this is what they do, you know, like they have these rules that they've made in their head. And so that's where intention is obviously very important, where if I'm telling my body that I have this pre-programmed, like you mentioned, right, that I need to do this, or this is the way I rotate the bat, or this is the way I swing my arm, or this is what I need to do. You know, again, with that, I start making these rules in my head, and my movement and my body is going to respond to this rule that I put in the system. It's like almost having, if you're a coder, if there's somebody that codes for a website or something, right? You know, there's code in there, and you've inserted some code that says that when this happens, I'm gonna, like, you know, you're overriding certain things. And again, don't be wrong, that can be useful at times, you know, especially when I'm training and doing other things. And like you mentioned, for adaptation and some of these other things, it's a useful system. But as you mentioned, when I want to be able to perform, especially underneath, you know, this time pressure and in-game context, that's why a lot of athletes are, you know, they're not thinking, you know, when they're performing their best, and you know, some of those other things too as well. And now there's a way of training, and you know, in context in there, to how do I get myself to that space, as you'd mentioned too, right? Like, how do I get myself ready? How do I trust myself? There is all these other layers of context, but you know, from the gate there, it is really important. And I would ask you this too as well, Bertrand. One of the things that I think about with trust or faith or other things inside of, even spiritually for me too, but one of the things I actually is super useful for me is, as you mentioned, like, how do I, as an athlete, how do I trust myself? And I think a lot of people think that trust is more so a feeling, right? Where like they're chasing the feeling of trust. Like, okay, I feel like I can trust you, or I feel like I can trust myself. But one of the things that I've actually found power in, that I think is really useful for athletes and also coaches and things in this way, is making it a decision. You know, like, I'm choosing to trust. I'm choosing to,
course.
you know, do this, right? Where it becomes mine, instead of, like you said, instead of a have to, it's a decision from me, which then opens things up for me, right? Like, I'm choosing to trust this right now. And like, you know what, if I'm going to fail, you know, I'm going to go all out at committing to it, or etc. You know, is that something that you've seen work in the past, or another version of that you would agree with?
Yeah, definitely. For us in our language, feeling is also a decision, because you will go for what you like and what you don't like. Okay, it's a personal feeling, a personal decision. I will avoid what I don't like, and I will go for what I like. And trusting is also like a meditative state,
Mm,
which is you are fully connected with whatever is inside and outside, with no condition, which means I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I am trusting what I was thinking before, my strategy, my tactic, and everything. I have
mm,
that like say that intention that is clear enough. Okay, that's the idea. I have a clear intention. I have no doubt about my intention, and you can always, as I say every time, see intention as a tension that is inside. Okay,
mm.
it's a natural tension inside of you, an intention, inside tension that is natural, which is I put all my energy in that intention, and I let my body self-organize,
Yeah.
because my body will take whatever is ready, and I mean, voluntarily change the movement, okay, after my intention is clarified. My intention is clarified, I have no doubt about it, and I let my body self-organize. And that's like the main rule of acting spontaneously and efficiently, because you are aligned with the sensomotoric level, the cognitive level, and the emotional level, which is everything is aligned, and your gesture is a byproduct of that coherency.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a consequence of your coherency between the layers that we can imagine. Okay, sensomotoric, emotional, and cognitive. So if we
Mm.
have that connection, the movement will be natural, and if the movement will be natural, a natural outcome, the chances or the let's say the opportunity to give the best adapted movement to whatever I'm facing
Yeah.
is at his best, at his best.
Yeah, and I don't want to run past that too, Patron. I don't know if you have that graphic or you're willing to show that graphic of the layers. Like we talked about it. You just described the layers, but I know that that was good for me to see too as well, where you again showing that we have these different layers that need to be in alignment, where again we when we're playing at our best and everything feels effortless and everything feels etc. And he's talking about like, again, now there is a different time and place where when we're training and we're going for adaptation and we're doing, there's a different again, there's a different time to do things that might take more thought, that might be, et cetera, right? But what we're talking about specifically is when we're in more so, I think what you would describe here in the States, we talk a lot about like flow, right? To be in this flow state where everything is super, easy to, man, I can't not be good right now. Like I'm so locked in and this is so easy for me. And this is, think of the best game in your life. Think of when, you felt like your performance was at your highest, right? Like all of these layers of, how would you describe them? When you say layers of, is it like like internal ecosystem, or how would you describe those layers? How do you describe them, Bertrand?
I'm trying to open the slide for that at the
The
same
slide for that.
time. Yeah, so that I can share that again. It's important for people to understand, maybe for some people more visually.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the slide, but I will explain. I got a slide here, so I can
Yeah.
maybe
And it,
share that.
yeah, and I think that's the big thing is like sometimes we're in search of flow and we all know that it's not one thing, right? Like, so for example, like he's saying, right? Like, let's say in training, I could be training for adaptation. I'm training my body to have all these solutions and other, maybe something I couldn't do 3 years ago, I can do now, right? I'm capable physically of doing something now and responding in a way now. That I couldn't do years ago, but now I can do those things. Now that would be on one layer of like physical capabilities, et cetera. But obviously, again, like we talk about, like, and Bertrand, I'll let you break down the layers and do all that as well. But that's one of the things that I think was really important is understanding, flow is understanding kind of all of these different layers and how they actually all come together when we come into performance. So yeah, go ahead.
So what I don't know is if the people can see my pointer or my
Yeah, I,
mouse.
I, yeah, I can see your pointer. You're good.
Can see? Okay. So that's of course a conceptual framework that we designed for people to understand. Um, the sensomotoric layer, that's where the action type approach is mainly acting, is the fundamental layer, the ground layer, completely down, because we are sensomotoric creatures. Okay, we have senses and we can move. We have a perception action cycle, which means if we perceive, we act. If we act, we perceive. And this is because we are completely in an environment, and our body is also an environment by its own. So at that level is the action. That the action is always first. I'm doing something. I have my motor skill. I have some motivation of that we call also deep motivational drivers. They are the two things that we find here that are sensomotoric from nature. Okay, and of course, if something is happening down there, you have to give some kind of the value to that what you're experiencing. Okay, and that's the emotional level. The emotional level is we can say, to make it more simple or simpler, is the value your body naturally attribute to whatever you are experiencing.
Mm,
Okay, and it's even there if you don't move, because the fact that you have intention is enough to create an emotion. The fact
mm,
that you have an inner intention, so an
yeah,
inner tension, will trigger emotions,
yeah,
which may be a problem, because they may also break your ability to create the flow, because
yeah,
maybe the emotion is linked with doubt. Okay, Okay, I doubt that I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough to break everything. And of course, at the top here we have the cognitive level that here we put with the MBTI letters, which is an example of how we can um, translate the cognitive level, which means at that level, I will have preferences that I can um, find by using questionnaires and everything.
Mhm.
But if I use questionnaire at that level, I will have a lot of cognitive biases. So that
Yeah.
level here is biased by what we experience, by our beliefs, by our trial and errors, by everything that we succeeded and everything we missed.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a lot of bias. It's why by going at that level, at the green level, we have the possibility to understand how the body is organizing by itself.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have to understand also the consequences going up there, up to the spiritual part here up, which is here the meaning you give to the things you live. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's also something that is a consequence of who you are, of course, and what you do
Yeah.
and what you do. So you may have a natural flow between those layers, which is there is a consequence on every layers here, and you are aligned with yourself, which is how you function naturally. Or you may influence the cognitive level with your beliefs because you think I can do that and I cannot do this.
Yeah.
Okay, or you have emotions here that will create some virus, let's say, or that will push you to do whatever you want to do. Because
Yeah.
emotions can be very, very supportive and they can also very, I mean, the
Detrimental.
contrary.
Yeah.
Okay, detrimental, exactly. So, um, but if you understand and if you coach your body at that level, okay, the basic level here, by being coherent with who you are, then of course all of a sudden everything up is like a flow,
Yeah.
which means the emotion level is not disturbing, the cognitive level is not disturbing what you do. Okay, and the trust is to let that natural movement from green, red, blue happen without trying to manipulate anything.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay?
It's
Like a
everything's in alignment.
natural flow.
Yeah.
Yes, everything is in alignment. So that's a way to present things. Okay,
Yeah. No, yeah,
so
I think that was good. Yeah. And I wanted to bring this up too as well is I think this leads perfectly into what we talked about where, here in the States, we do a really bad job of you know, when we look into profiling and we kind of look at some of these things here too as well, there's a lot of things that can influence and give me what we would call false positives. We believe this person is this type of profile or moves in this profile that is this type of X, Y, and Z. But that's really important. I know that's something that you're really passionate about too, as well as like, okay, well, again, just because somebody's expressing themselves, and again, because they're, deep motivational drivers might make somebody appear this way, but they're actually the complete opposite. And I know that that's something that you're really passionate about. So I want to give you the floor to kind of talk about that. But I know that that's something here in the States are profiling and can lead you really astray, right? If you start training somebody or saying, especially when you back that up by putting somebody into the profile becoming a box, as you know, again, both of those I know are things that you're really passionate about. Is one, you could be misdiagnosing or misprofiling, right? A lot of false positives. And then you also have the velocity backing that all of a sudden there's a box that person has to stay in and it's the wrong profile. Is, man, you can really get messy really quick. So I'm going to kind of let you, open that up and kind of talk through what I was just like, kind of introed there.
yes, okay, thank you. Of course, there is a first rule that we use when we talk about motor signatures and motor preferences. The only person that can validate any profile, I mean, is the person itself, which means okay, somebody else, an expert can do something and tell me whatever what they see at some point when they profile me, but it doesn't mean that what they see is right
Hmm.
because they see a moment, and we know that we have the four systems that are linked together, and the dynamic of the four is your profile. And at some point, when I profile you, I can have your first, second, third, or fourth,
Yeah.
because it's something very easy for anybody to jump to, depending on the needs, on the need of your expression, on need of the context. Okay, so we have a body intelligence. We have a something like we can call intelligence of the body, and that intelligence or the motor intelligence is the first intelligence that happened here. Okay, and this one on the green level allowed the other intelligence to emerge with a much greater confidence. Okay, because it's a consequence, like we just said before. So if I profile somebody, I need to create a validation path, which means if what I saw is the first system, okay, or the second, the third, or the fourth, by validating in time or over time the dynamic of what is happening when I'm fully aware and fully, I mean, energetically speaking, ready to do something,
Yeah.
or if I'm tired, stressed, or emotionally impacted, I need to see how my system is adapting to validate my profile.
Yeah.
No one on earth can give you with a profiling the correct answer if they don't validate over
Yeah.
time,
What would you
because
say?
this is a
So
contextual intelligence.
yeah, I don't want to, I just want to stop right here because of this one point that I wanted to make. So for you guys, yes, you will take in the information from a singular day, but if somebody is profiling within an hour, within a day, and they're saying, this is what you are, 100%, this is what you are, to you, you'd be like, okay, there's no way you could validate because you don't know what side of the cube you're looking at as you would describe it.
Exactly. First of all, I will never say practitioners we are educating,
Yeah.
they will never say, they're not allowed to say you are like this.
Yeah.
The verb to be is not here the one we should use. Okay.
Mm,
You show now, actually you show that.
hmm.
You express, you express that face, okay, of the
Yeah.
cube, okay, and or something. You show that face, which means have one angle reaching to your profile. But we know there are four. There are
Yeah.
four. So, which means we have, first of all, for everybody to understand, we have more resources in terms of technical abilities than what we think.
Mm,
Okay, we can do things very differently because our contextual intelligence will allow adaptation. Okay, and
hmm.
again, as I said before, it's not it's not like it's not the truth
Yeah.
that you will always perform in your first system.
Yeah.
You may win a medal, a world title, or the gold medal in your fourth system, in
Yeah.
your third system, in your second system. Okay, because it's the one that was adapted to whatever you were doing at the moment you were in that money time. Okay, and
And
they are as
not
good
to
as the first one. They are as good as the first one.
yeah, yeah, I wanted to make this an emphasis because I know that this is something here in the States that we really struggle with too as well. So that's another thing, as you just mentioned right there, is that we start thinking, okay, well, there's this, I'm going to go and I get profiled. I was there for an hour. This guy took me through this assessment. And now, okay, this is my main system. This is how I operate. And I need to, if I want to be my best, I need to stay within this system of what I currently am expressing right now. That's going to be my maximum performance. But you're saying on the other side of that, it's like, hey, my fourth system might be what I win my Olympic medal in, and that is just as strong as my first system. And if I only go by that first system and I'm trying to evaluate within that one system, especially if I'm misdiagnosing within that one profiling session, because I've only been with you for, you know, 30 minutes and I ran you through, a couple different tests and I say, this is what you are, is that, again, this is why this can be really problematic and why I can get results with certain athletes, maybe something, again, we also have cognitive bias, right? Oh, well, let's do this. This will prove that what I'm saying is correct. And then we do it and it's like, oh, wow, everybody, it looks like a magic show, right? And then, a whole bunch of athletes that it doesn't work for, it's like, oh, well, X, Y, and Z, but you're, kind of talking about it from right here is like you said, is like my fourth system might be, again, actually much more beneficial for me in this moment, within this context. And this leads me to getting gold comparatively to, my first system. And I kind of just wanted to stop there because I know that that's something here in the States that is like, starting to grab root is like, okay, this is how we're doing things. And this is what this means. We need to stay quote unquote in profile. And again, like as you mentioned, yes, all of those systems are part of my motor signatures. But at the same time, when we're saying profile here in the States, it's getting misconstrued with your first system and just staying in that system. And I just wanted to bring that up and then let you expand on that because I know that that's something that's very common right now in thoughts here in the States.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. The first system, as I said, we call it the comfort zone. We call it the exploitation zone. You exploit what you have in your comfort zone because it's very easy to reach. It's the one that where you experience most of your conscious moment. Okay, so it's where you can trust easily that comfort zone because you have a special acquaintance, a special bond with that conscious part. But it doesn't mean it will suit for all the problems you will encounter.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I will make it even clearer. You are always in profile because you cannot get out of your profile. Okay,
There you
it's
go.
not possible.
Yeah.
You are who you are. Okay, you are who
Yeah.
you are. I mean that was given, and
Yep.
you have that complexity inside of you, and at the same time, it doesn't mean you are coherent inside that profile. And
Mm.
all the layers we showed before, they can create incoherency. We can have incoherency on the sensomotoric level. We can have incoherency on the emotional level, cognitive level also, because we are thinking something that is not useful for the present moment of what we are trying to achieve.
Got
Okay,
it.
or emotionally, we are letting ourselves completely drawn into the emotions that will impair, that will create a problem for the motor skills. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so we can really easily create problems. Okay, but the system is like designed or it's developed to create coherency. And how it is possible? Because we in the book is what we explain also. There is a total coherency principle. Our body intelligence is looking to align those layers to create a total coherency principles because that total coherency principle is like I am ready to adapt. I'm available to whatever comes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's only possible if you let the body self-organize.
Yeah.
Because even if you have a lot of intentions, ideas, and everything, you cannot summarize, you cannot coordinate all the information flowing through your body
Yeah.
and flowing also inside your body.
Yeah.
And your body can do that. Your body can summarize all the parameters that you're having, the physiological parameters, and also the information coming from the outside
Yeah.
into a global perception system that will say yes or no in terms of readiness.
Oh yeah. I was
Okay,
gonna point.
I
I was
am
gonna.
ready, I'm not ready.
Oh yeah. I was gonna point that out. That a lot of, especially, and again, I don't know if it's the same in your community, but definitely here in the States, one of the things would be is we think about our senses, right? Like our senses, and we think smelling, tasting, hearing, feeling, all these things. But there's a lot of those are senses and mostly senses that can be pretty conscious for us. But what I wanted
Exactly.
to point out is that we need to understand is that we have senses, our body has senses that are not conscious. And so that's
Exactly.
what you're talking about from self-organization, from that way is that there's a connectedness, there's senses that my brain is picking up that is not conscious, that I'm getting feedback through my senses based on tension, based on, available resources, as you mentioned. Like there's all of these things, energy levels that I have internally, right? Like what is those fuel sources, right? How much ATP, all these things that are happening internally. And then there's, it's self-organizing based on those internal constraints. And then perception and action, as you mentioned, right, which is environment and task and, all these other things that I have to take in that turns into, what solution, right, that my self-organization, right, what solution my body comes up with for all of those things. But I just wanted to point that out that a lot of times when we say senses, a lot of people think of, your basic, senses, and they don't actually know that there's all these things that are happening internally that are not conscious, that are also senses for our body too.
Yes, and we can add that we have much more senses that are unconscious than senses that are conscious, which means we have the five senses that are well known since Aristotle.
Yeah.
And you were right in terms of they can influence our consciousness quite directly, and we can put our attention consciously on them. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's why when we can relate those information with what we do, we can build like a concrete experience.
Yeah.
But we may have 20 up to 30 more senses that are not conscious. And let's say that movement, as we're talking about, is a sense by itself.
Yeah.
So we by moving, we allow our body to integrate information that are not available if you don't move.
Yeah.
And we call a sense a channel of information that brings original information, which means information that the other channels are not able to bring.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of those unconscious information, like movement, like proprioception, like balance. Balance is also like a sense by itself. Okay, so our body can summarize and can play with all those information. I mean, at the same time, almost
Yeah.
at the same time, which means integrate everything consciously and unconsciously, and of course trigger your readiness to do or not to do something.
Yeah.
So it's why we need to respect the body intelligence, because it's much more intelligent than what we have here. Okay.
I would
And,
literally,
and
you
we,
just said
we
that. I was like, that's what I tell our athletes all the time. I go, your body is way smarter than your brain. Your
exactly.
body is like it understands, it's wired to survive. There's so much. If we had, and that's actually an evolutionary, that's very important. Our ability to respond to things without consciously needing to think about it, and how it adapts and all those things. Like, man, imagine if you needed to know everything. I always say, like, imagine if you needed to know how to build a sports, race car before you could, even drive a car down the street. If you needed to know all the inner workings of everything about the car, every piece, how everything was molded, before you could ever drive the car, it's like, man, you would have to be much older before you would ever be able to walk or crawl or do anything. So instead, like, again, our bodies are very intelligent. And we give it less credit, as you mentioned, because we want to make everything conscious. And if it's like, okay, if I can't consciously comprehend it, then I can't do it, which we know that not to be true. That's when we see with elite athletes, they may be able to do some insane skill. It doesn't mean that they can teach it or they even know what's really happening. Because again, there's so much of it that is unconscious, that they developed and their body has adapted in that same way. And I think that's the thing, is we have this romanticism with conscious, what is conscious, what we can wrap our heads around, when in reality, there's so much of it that is our body is organizing that is not conscious.
Exactly. And that's very difficult for us to imagine,
Yeah.
of course, because consciousness is like a dictator. It dictates our life. Okay. And in fact, we are only aware of 1% of our reality on average. I mean, on average, a 1% of reality. And we have learned to create with this 1%. And that 1% seems to be 100%. Okay. But the body's autonomous intelligence is much more than what we think.
Yeah.
Okay. and you were right with the car, and even the person going that way may never drive the car.
Yeah.
Okay, because life is too short.
Yeah. To
Okay,
learn
so
everything there is to learn. Yeah.
yeah, if you really want to understand how the body functions, you need to ask, and you need to remember that the nervous system is like a system created by the body, because the body needed to have a coordination and a sensory system, and a motor coordination system. So we can see the brain as an organ of our body. So it's an
Mm.
inside device that was created because we need
Yeah.
something sophisticated
Mm.
to adapt. To adapt, we have a lot of maps here of the body,
Yeah.
maps for everything. If you read
Yeah.
Antonio Damasio, the new guy from California,
Mm.
um, there are lots of maps available, and we need those maps to speculate, to anticipate, to figure out what we need to adapt.
I love
Okay, and
that kind of was an unlock for me, is the thinking about the body, being the brain being an organ of the body that was a need. So it developed the brain, because not the opposite way where it's like, oh, okay, everything's, the brain is, the body is just a slave to what the brain's doing. It's like, no, no, no. The brain is, again, another organ that the body utilizes for a certain role. It needs it to do this, to do it. And that I think that's an interesting way of thinking about it, instead of just thinking about everything, obviously solely focused around, just the brain. It's interesting.
yeah, very important, because I mean, we have a lot of intelligence in our skin, in the matter, in the joints, in the fascia,
Yeah.
in all the conjunctive tissues. The way our body is made, already the choice of the materials is incredibly intelligent.
Yeah.
The elasticity, the fact that you can compress some parts and extend some others, and I mean all of what
Yeah.
we have intelligence in material, because the shape
Yeah.
is also something that is grown by movement and by experiencing things.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's very important for the coaches to see the body that way, and not that we have a body just to bring our head from one meeting to another meeting.
Yeah.
It's not the goal. That's the joke of Sir Ken Robinson in his TED talk. He said some people think we have a body just to bring our head from one meeting to another meeting. No, the intelligence is here, and we see that there are more information flowing, in fact, from the body to the brain than we have information flowing from the brain to the body.
Mm.
So we have something very important, and our heart also is very, very interesting, because we have a brain for the heart.
Yeah.
We have heart intelligence, we have body intelligence, and some researcher found also like a brain in our guts. Okay,
Yeah.
and even some researchers found some neuron system and some brain in our fatty tissue.
Mm.
So
Interesting. I haven't
that's
heard that one.
pretty
I knew
interesting,
I
because
knew the heart. I knew the heart and the gut. There's a lot of research out there now, where especially like, some of the gut and what it and the information from there. Same thing with like our heart
yeah.
too as well. But I didn't know about the fatty tissue. That's interesting.
Yeah, me either. When I read that, I was also flabbergasted. But we found a lot of things, and we need to, like we said before, we need to stay open and curious,
Yeah.
because more things will be found.
Yeah.
More things will be found in the future,
Yeah.
and we need science to stay open to whatever comes.
Well, and as you mentioned, the other thing is I think a lot of people treat science like a absolute fact, and there's no. I think we need to understand that data or information, right, is in it of itself objective. Okay, sure, this information I'm taking in is objective. Now, how I make sense of that information will always be subjective. And so, because of that, people, I think when they miss that the step where they go, well, the data says, and it's like, no, 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 the data reads this. your interpretation of what that data means is now subjective.
Exactly.
So when we treat all of this stuff as this is 100%, this is the science, and it's like, no, that's your interpretation of the science. And that's why I think it's also important too, was because our interpretations change over time, sometimes with the same exact data or stuff that we, the evidence that we collect. We might have a new interpretation of wisdom, which I think is the difference between wisdom and just knowledge, right? Of like knowledge, okay, facts, all these X, Y, and Z, but the story that it actually creates and how it all works together, and which is where you're talking about, for example, like motor signatures compared to just a motor preference, right? It's like, okay, well, the signature is how it all works together. It's the total expression, right? Comparatively to just a data point within, that total expression. So I think that that's also a big piece as well. It's like, yeah, for example, if I take in, let's say I broke my arm and there's a joint limitation or something like that in itself is a data point, and it is an internal constraint, and there might be adaptations around that, but that's not a total, that's not enough information to give me total view of what is the entire signature of what's going on. And I think that that's like a much deeper route comparatively to, just looking at a singular data point and going, okay, so it's this, so it must be that, which is simple to understand, but not, I think in a lot of ways, one thing that opened me up to seeing the complexity of the body is seeing it from an awe. And I think this is very, for you too, is in this way, is I love the complexity because it makes me go, wow. I'm actually in respect of I thought it was just this, and man, it can do all of this too. And I had no idea, so, and that's the curiosity for me, is I'm not trying to make something that is beautifully made and one of the most complex things, that's ever existed. I'm not trying to make it simple. Instead, I'm trying to enjoy, right, and take in its beauty of complexity. It is complex, and that's what makes it so, and awing to me. It actually, like for me, it helps me see the creator by seeing his creation of going like, wow, like you've thought of things that, I would have never even been able to admire. Like I can't even admire all the complexity because I can't see how much complexity. And the deeper I go, the more complexity I see. And that's where I think for me, I was just going to bring that part up and I'll let you speak on that, is that's why I appreciate the complexity, because I don't mind that it's complex. I actually respect and enjoy, like that's what makes it passionate for me, that it is complex.
Yeah, we have no choice anyway. We can create actions. Actions are very interesting because they are here or they are not here, which is they are 1-0. I can do something or not, which makes me responsible of what I do against the law, with the law system. So I'm responsible of my action. But going back to the science thing, it's interesting because science is rooted in history, and is a lot shaped by what we call influences.
Yeah.
Okay, if we come back to a very nice story that you can read in a book in French, but I think it's not translated. It was not translated yet. It's a professor of a neurosurgeon called Hugues Dufaux. Hugues Dufaux is a south of France, Montpellier. He received what we call the Nobel Prize. There is no Nobel Prize for that one, but it's another name. I don't remember exactly the name of the prize, but he received that for neurosurgery, okay? Because he witnessed something that was what he called the Broca's error. Damasio, I was talking about before, talked about another error, which is Descartes' error. The error of Descartes. Descartes, the philosopher and a French guy that's founding a little bit of the logical thinking of reasoning. Okay, I think, therefore I am. Okay, that's Descartes.
Got it.
Okay, and Damasio is saying, okay, that's not true. So Descartes made an error by saying that, and Dufaux did the same with Broca's error. Broca was a medical doctor in the in the 19th century. And he discovered on the frontal left here what we call later the Broca's area, which is the motor speech center for talking. Okay, and he had the opportunity, the chance, or the problem to encounter two clients that he could analyze after their death that were not able to talk. They were aphasic. Okay, and those people, they were just doing sounds, always the same sounds,
Yeah.
not able to use the motor skill of speech. Okay,
Got it.
and those two, by chance for him, had the same area on the brain when he dissected, the same area that was completely damaged. So generalization, which is something we never do, generalization, okay, they call it the Broca's area, okay, which is an official name still today.
Yeah.
But in fact, that area doesn't exist, okay, because the neurosurgeon that I was talking about before, he took Broca's area from out of the brain by surgery from a lot of patients,
Yeah.
and they never lost speech.
Wow.
Okay, if it was true, they would have lost speech.
Yeah.
But they never lost speech because you don't have a Broca's area, but you have a Broca's network. Okay, which is different from one person to another person.
Yeah.
It can be the same, but it can be a lot of differences, which means by witnessing something and generalizing,
Yeah.
we still talk today when we print books today
Yeah.
of a Broca's area that doesn't exist. But that's the problem of science and the influences of the things that are rooted in history.
Yeah.
A lot of things that were discovered at the beginning of the science are still here, but are completely false.
Yeah.
Completely false. And that's something we have to live with and face, because it's like a habit.
Yeah.
Okay, and people that don't like to change their habits. Okay,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, no, and I think that was a good story. No, and I great example, and I think that's the thing too as well. It's like science has been wrong time and time and time and time again. And one of the things that we've talked about, I talked about this on your podcast recently, right? Is that old thing? It's like, again, nature doesn't know science. We develop science to understand nature. And because of that, it's not nature that's wrong. It's our science that's wrong, right? Our science, again,
Yes.
the science that's being done today, how we believe things work, how we believe they operate. Again, thousands of years from now, or et cetera, right? Is we might look at back all this and go, oh my, like good, like just like we look at certain sciences from even a couple hundred years ago, even 20 years ago, right? We've changed, again, how we do things. Oh man, we used to think it was this, so we went this way. What was cutting edge surgery 10 years ago compared to now is now normal practices, or even two. For example, we'll see how this all goes. But again, they're going down the route of having, we're going down this route of AI where a lot of surgeries will be performed, right? Where they're able to do certain things that we weren't capable of doing, which again leads to a whole nother thing. I mean, even to a vision, like LASIK is such a normal thing now where, they could help people with their vision, where years ago, it was, impossible, or, you're just blind forever, or all these other things. Right. So I do think that, again, it's very important for us to remember that with science, as we present science as, and that's the science, period. Right. Rather than us remembering that that's putting like us dying on a hill. Well, I can't change my mind because I've made a rule that this is fact no matter what, rather than, as we, the basis of science, right, is that, again, if there's ever anything that comes out in the contrary that proves that what we believe to be true is no longer true. Like, for example, sometimes we believe something to be true because we don't have the technology currently available, right, to be able to measure it. But then years later, like surgery, or, again, we did a lot of things where we used to base a lot of biomechanics and a lot of theory around it on cadavers, because everybody, again, we had all these dead bodies, and we said, oh, this is how much weight it can handle, right? And it's like, yeah, because the nervous system, they did that with shoulder studies. They used to have a cadaver and they'd put weight in the arm, and then when it snapped, it's like, oh, this is what it can hold. And it's like, Well, yeah, the CNS system is completely shut down. There's nothing there to manage that weight and what it would do, et cetera. And so, a lot of times, like I said, there's already a bunch of different systems and technologies now that we can track a ton of things that we couldn't do previously. So there's a lot of things, specifically what I'm really interested in the next couple decades here is too, as well as is that the CNS is definitely something that is, and how our body coordinates and all of those things. There's a lot of those things that technology wise, there's limitations of how we can kind of view those systems. So in a lot of ways, it gets overlooked comparatively to a muscle contraction, or it's something that's very much easier for us. But even then, right, like we had EMGs at one point that didn't exist. And again, we just saw the muscle flex and it's like, okay, that means it's on or it's not, or what we believed about muscles and how they operated, all that changes over time. So it should keep us open. But I think with that, right, a lot of people, and it's natural for our human minds, is we love certainty. We love to feel certain so we can trust it and we can commit to this or that. But in reality, the only certainty is change, and that I don't see everything, and that there is more. And if I lean into that, and that I'm not in control, and not everything is absolute, and there's, if I actually lean into the reality rather than like needing it to be this way, because again, like you mentioned, if I believe this to be true, and then when all this stuff starts happening that is contrary to what my beliefs are, that's going to sow even more distrust in my system, and that that can cause a bunch of things in it of itself. But yeah, no, I wanted to kind of bring up that piece. And because I know even here, again, for example, it's happening here in the States, right? It's like, oh, motor preferences, this is the science. This is this. And if you don't agree with this, then, you don't understand it enough. You don't X, Y, and Z. And it's like, well, no, I mean, in reality, like science isn't just what I say it is and what my opinion is, right? It is, anybody has the ability to utilize science for what they believe, and then, kind of pulling it all together. But yeah, what would you say that, specifically here as well, right? Like I know right now, that's how me and you actually came to meet, was I was like, things were getting presented as this is the science, this is how it is. When, again, for you in that same example, when we first met, that was one of the first things I picked up on, was that you were not like that. So I think that's why we connected so much right off the jump.
Yeah, the difficulty, of course, is there's complexity we talk about, and action is simple with the 1-0. I mean, you do, you don't do. But of course, simplification is very dangerous, because it has two sides of the coin. Okay, it can lead to an action that is okay, adapt it to whatever you do. But simplification also another side, which is you oversimplify and you lose the connection between things, and the richness of human movement and of living organism is connections between the system. The system that we are analyzing with science, these are concepts. I mean, we talk about the central nervous system, okay? A central nervous system is a concept. It's a design by human to understand what is happening there. But the central nervous system is completely incorporated inside our body, and you cannot separate it from the rest, which is it's a part of the whole. And of course, by simplification, making like it's something living by itself. No, it's not. You create false assumptions. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the problem sometimes of simplification.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, we need to respect life, and we need to respect what was created, what was developed, because it's much more intelligent, as we said, than what we think. Okay.
Yeah.
So the overall system, the overall intricacies between the things are very, very complex, because that's the only way to create what we call robustness. If you want to create something adaptable, robust, which means that is long lasting, you need to have complexity. Okay, if you have simple things, they will die right away if there is any problem or that they cannot face. Okay,
Mm,
complexity of system and intrication of system that creates that complexity allows adaptation, and then of course, as a matter of consequence, you may perform. But
yeah.
what is important is, and we were talking about that in our podcast, is that the performance you cannot repeat.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's also something coaches have to understand at some point. Okay,
Mm,
a performance is a unique consequence of what was the initial conditions that were there for that performance to happen. Okay, which means you cannot recreate, you cannot copy and paste the performance. It has to take into account that all the initial conditions were, will be not the same on the next trial or on the next game.
mm,
Okay, which is play will not be the same, the environment will have changed and everything. So we have to see performance as something that is only available at a certain moment
yeah.
and not replicable. Not
And
replicable.
and one of the ways, obviously, for people to wrap their head around that, if you haven't looked in, we talk about this in our skill acquisition course as well, is again, understanding attractors and like fluctuators, right? Like everything, like you're saying, right? If I do this, like let's say a ball's flying at me, it's on a tee, it's sitting right down the middle. If I swing 2 times in a row, they're not going to be identical. But your muscles are going to fire at just a little slightly different. The timing is going to be slightly different. To repeat that exact where everything the exact same, it's impossible. Everything is not going to be
Impossible.
the exact same on every single rep. Something's going to be different. There's going to be fluctuations. Now,
Yes.
if you close your
Yes.
eyes, you can imagine your best player, yeah, I mean your favorite player doing an action, and it looks very similar to another,
Mhm.
something that he might have done previously. But at the same time, again, if you actually go to the depths, is it the exact same? No, there is attractors, there is spark notes, there is key points that look similar, the finish, the start, the style at which how they, move their body, or there's certain things, there's elements that are very similar to other movements, a signature, right? A signature looks generally the same every time you sign it, but it is
But it's not
never
the
the
same.
same. So
Never.
because of that, right? Like, yes, your signature is your signature, but also at the same time, it is never the exact same anytime you ever sign it. So that's something for us to kind of keep
Also
in
because
mind,
of also because of the pen, huh?
Yeah,
And Joey, also because of the pen you're taking, I can do that with one pen, another pen, a
yep,
pen that is having less ink or a pencil.
yep,
Okay, so the environment, my motor skill, the environment, they will create always a different signature.
yeah,
But we will have some. I mean, it will look the same,
yep,
and at the same time, it will not be the same.
yeah. And I was
So
gonna,
the problem of marketers and sellers, they want you to buy the same, but it's not the same.
Yeah. Which I think it's the illusion of certainty, right? The illusion of like, well, if it is that, if
Yeah.
it is simple, then I can be very sure that this is going to create this outcome. If I do this, I'll get this
Mhm.
outcome. And that's, again, it gives us a false sense of security, right? Like we think for sure, that this is going to happen, but in reality, that's not how performance works. That's not what makes it, so beautiful. Is that again, if you do this, it doesn't mean every single time this is going to happen. And there is conditions and things like that where again, training wise, we're trying to be as consistent as possible. But also within that, there's complexity of how our body actually, does that, right? We're trying to create a similar outcome, but that doesn't mean that our body is going to do the exact same thing to create that similar outcome. I can hit for baseball, I can hit a ball to right field and have, fired, this a little bit harder than I did the time before or less or from a slightly different angle or, slightly different pitch, slightly different, etc. And then again, create a very similar outcome. But that doesn't mean that my body's doing the exact same thing every single time, which is what gets confused because it's very simplistic way of describing what the body actually does. And yeah, so I wanted to kind of bring that part up as well as like, yes, again, I'm good just like you are, right? Yes, I want them to spike and I want to create this, again, I want to create this certain outcome, right? But at the same time, when we do that, it's going to be different. The body is going to have different strategies to try to create that similar outcome.
Exactly. What we try to train on my part, if I have to explain it to a coach or to an athlete, what I want to train really and to maintain, it's the adaptation skills. So I need the person to maintain these adaptation competencies that are completely linked to the present moment, which is also, they will be here, they will help me do whatever I have to do and perform if I am in that trust, if I am in a moment where my flow conditions are here,
Yeah.
which means it doesn't mean I will be in the flow, but I can create the flow conditions. And the flow condition is I have to trust, and I have to is a stress, remember? I trust in my ability to create the best possible condition for me to adapt to the present moment.
Mm,
Okay, which is unconditional trust in what my body can achieve and in
mm,
what my body can do. And again, make a clear intention, create a clear intention in what you want, because you can learn from what you do. If you have a
yeah.
clear intention, you will always learn from what you did. Okay. If your intention is like fuzzy, then it's difficult to learn.
Yeah.
But a baby wanting to learn how to walk has the intention to walk. He doesn't know how, but
Mm,
he has the intention to walk, and he knows he has to stand up for that.
yeah.
Okay, he will stand up. He wants to stand up. There's no constraints in terms of I have to stand up. He wants to stand up, and at some point he will balance and find a way to balance. And the nervous system is here to create the rest. I mean, all the coordination you need to maintain your balance on 2 feet.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an outcome. Like walking is an outcome. Okay, we have some reflexes for walking, but it's still a help to create the final adaptive solution. But the baby has to fall a lot to maintain this adaptability while walking.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
and in my family with my wife, we never when the babies were falling on the ground, we were never taking them on their feet again.
Hmm.
That was also coaching adaptation. Okay, fall on the floor when you learn how to walk, you can stand by yourself,
Hmm.
which means autonomy, letting them create an autonomous behavior was also part of the education, which is you don't need me to stand up.
Yeah.
You need me to encourage you,
Mm,
okay, to stand up, and I will be effectively supporting what you're doing, but
mm,
I don't have to take you and put you back on your feet, because
mm,
that you can do by yourself.
yeah.
And that's a message of trust, that is very important from the parents. Okay, they most of the kids, when they fall, it's not dangerous. Okay, they can do things by themselves. Maybe they will cry, of course, but that's
Mm,
not a problem. I mean, you encourage them to look at something interesting 2 meters away, and
hmm.
they will forget about the cry, and they will go for the thing that is interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to recognize the pain when they have something. Okay, recognize their suffering, and at the same time you don't have to do the things for them.
Mm,
Okay, I have to recognize their way of sensing and feeling. I surely doesn't have to do the things for them.
yeah. And I want to bring this part up too, is one of the things that also gets brought up here in the States, right? Which is also another layer of this is misrepresentation, and also could lead to some places of the opposite of what gets put out there. Let's say I profiled, but you got profiled and it wasn't the most accurate profile. Then two, the philosophy is staying in your one expression, right? Of like, hey, I want to stay in this whatever I got profiled as. And then the problem with that, as you mentioned, let's say I then go about that philosophy and I execute on that philosophy. The problem is our body has all of these ways of dealing with these stresses, all of these ways. The reason that we have so many responses, right, is because there's a need for them. So if we don't let the body express these other things because that's not in your profile, then, as you mentioned, there actually is the opposite. I'm selling that if you do it this way, you won't ever you're not going to get injured, like you're not, maybe if it's a contact injury or whatever, right? But they're, like I said, if it's coming out saying, well, if you're in profile, you won't get hurt. If you're in profile, there won't be any of these injuries. But in reality, that profile is stuck behind a very strict coherence of what I should be doing or how I should be trying to do things or what I am exploring or what I'm allowed to explore. That is something I wanted you to kind of speak on too, because I know that you're passionate from that side, is speaking about, that when it comes into, we have these other systems and our body adapts in that way because there's a reason for it. And it doesn't just do that for no reason. Right. So I kind of wanted you to, open that up too.
Yeah. I was saying that adaptation is the most, the skill we want to maintain. And adaptation is linked with autonomy and trust and everything we said. Okay. And we have those four systems inside. Okay, to make it, quick, the first one I was talking about is exploitation. It's your comfort zone. Okay. You have a special acquaintance with that one. The second one is when you cannot do with the first one, like the first one is tired or the first one is affected by something, can be emotion, can be anything. Then you can jump to the second one, which is automatic system. Your body will jump to whatever or whatever experience you're having, and you cannot do that in your first system. Your body will go for the second. Naturally, which means as soon as you are tired or you're stressed, the system flips to the second system, which is very important to welcome because it is doing the job that the first one cannot do.
Yeah.
Okay. If you are tired and you want to keep working on your first one, okay, that's a little bit of what we call the burnout system, because you will always try to do the same thing over and over in your comfort zone, but that zone becomes uncomfortable because your willpower is killing the system. Okay, it doesn't let the system adapt to whatever is necessary to recover, to rejuvenate, because you have no more energy in the first one. You're not ready on the first one.
Yeah.
So the second system, very important. Most of the time let's say 20% of the time in a day, we are in the second system, about 20% of the time. It can be more, it can be less, depending on the context, of course.
Yeah.
But during the night, you spend also a lot of time in your second system. Okay, because you need to recover. You need to let your body completely do whatever was not possible to do during the day, during the conscious time. Okay, you have a lot of things happening during the night. We know that. And what about the third and the fourth? We call the third one a security system. A security system. It's like a fuse. When 1 and 2 are not able to do the job because of contextual problem, the third and the fourth, they can do the job. And the third and the fourth, they are always available if you exaggerate. What do I mean by exaggerating? Okay, we have two different attentions possible. I can be attending to whatever is coming to myself in my context by having my attention first on myself. It's what we call an introverted attention. My attention is starting with my body, and then I can go somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah.
Scientifically, we think that this is the default mode network that is taking the lead in your brain and body.
Got it.
Default mode network is a network that never shuts down.
Mm.
Okay, it's always on. And I think, and that's an hypothesis, that it could be linked to that introversion tendency of half of the people on Earth. Okay,
Mm.
and if you exaggerate in that direction, you can reach the third or the fourth, depending of your profile of all. And the last one, I mean the fourth or the third, depending of what I said, is an exaggeration in the other direction, which is putting your attention to the outside world in an exaggerated way, which means I over attend to what is outside,
Mm.
or I over attend to what is inside. And I can reach in half of a second, I can reach the third and the fourth. They
Yeah.
are, and that's the thing that is very, very important. They are always available. They are, like I said in my metaphor, they are true friends. You
Mm-hmm.
call them, they answer right away.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's do whatever you want with that metaphor, but
Yeah.
they are always available. If there is any problem with 1 and 2, 3 and 4, they can do the job. No problem.
Mm.
And they can do the job in a very, very efficient way, economical, efficient way. Even though we are exaggerating,
Yeah.
they are here to do that job independently of the conditions.
Yeah. So I'll kind of bring that up there specifically, right? Is kind of want to hit back on that again. Is another thing here in the States that we'll kind of talk about is, well, your number one system basically is your most efficient system. And that's why you always want to be in your number one system. What you're talking about is like, no, no, no. Your signature is your most efficient. You know, your ability to adapt, your whole system is shifting to what it needs to, right? It's an adaptive system. It is going to the resources that are the most efficient rather than this is the most efficient. That switch in mindset, right, is that's where the self-organization becomes really important because, like as you mentioned, it's the body is going to take in all those internal, non-conscious constraints or limitations or resources or etc. information. It's going to take all that information and then it is making a choice of what is the most efficient or making a choice of what resources I should call on based on what the environment, what the task, based on what's going on internally, how much I slept the night before, I'm fighting with my girlfriend, whatever, right? What all of those things. And then it comes up with a solution based on all of that information on what available resources it has access to.
Yeah, exactly. Your definition or your explanation are very good because it's exactly what is happening in terms of intelligence within us. Okay, the system has access to all those information,
Yeah.
and is able to choose according to the need. And that's what is very important here is also to let the people understand that because we have all those four, we will always have one of the four that will be the solution.
It has to be.
Okay, which means we
Yeah.
will always have one solution, minimum here, one solution for that present moment, for that moment.
Yeah.
Which is we are never like, okay, I don't know what to do. If we let the body self-organize, it will always come with the best possible solution. Okay, and coaches can say, okay, but this is complex. Of course, this is complex. And so what do I do as a coach there? Okay, witness what is working. Just witness, observe what is happening here, and use that as a learning moment. Okay,
Yeah.
which means I'm not going for an external solution. I'm going for what we called before an internal solution, an intrinsic solution. Okay, I'm not putting you a third arm here because you have already to coordinate the two first, and that's already enough complex. If I come with an outside solution, it's like I'm transplanting a third arm on your body, and that will be very, very complicated. Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't believe in outside solution. I believe in solution that are completely created from the inside out.
Yeah. So, and
Okay.
also I want
And
to
that's
separate this
very
here
important.
too as well, because here in the States, there's a big difference between what you're saying and just like an internal cue. What you're saying is, for example, I can, as a coach, what you can also do is you can craft an environment that forces them to self-organize within those constraints of the task
Yeah,
or etc. Right? That's where I get adaptation. So what you're saying is, from that same sense, an alignment with constraint led approaches, or again, maybe we're going into differential learning and all these other things, right? Is that what your job is as a coach is to be a master craftsman for how you design an environment or task to get their body to internally organize, and adapt based on these constraints, a task, etc. Now, again, along with that, it's going, as you mentioned, it's going to align, right, with based on the constraints. And you need to know your athlete so well that it helps you design an environment for them. The better you know them, the better you can design an environment that helps them access, these other options, or train these other, options that you would say, like in that way too as well. Because like you said, as you like, for example, it's so funny that you mentioned that part. When I started training martial arts, I was a really good athlete, but I didn't really know technique very well. And so what would happen was I'd go to train and I would use my athleticism to make up for bad technique. So what my instructor started doing is, at the beginning of class, he would wear me out. He would get me exhausted. He would make me do all these things that would exhaust me. And then he would go, okay, now we can get to work, because he, again, was utilizing that. He was crafting my environment based on those internal constraints. Right now that I'm exhausted, I am, again, we can focus, and he could train other areas for me comparatively, that when I'm fully recovered, right, I was compensating, or I would go always this one direction. And again, you might describe it in a different way there, but I remember that was a big part of my training. Was every day I'd come in there, and the first 20 minutes, he would just completely exhaust me before we actually started training.
yeah, exactly. That's a little bit what the kids are doing when they cannot do something. They will exaggerate with strength. They will overdo just to try to find a solution, because their first contention, or their first aim, is not coordination. Is, I
Yeah.
want to do something, feel something,
Yeah.
and they will put much more power than necessary. And I'm finished what I was started before, because what you just explained with your story is interesting, because the second system, we call it an exploration zone. You
Mm.
explore, which means you explore resources that you couldn't access in the first system. When you had your full power doing your martial arts, you could do, I mean, whatever felt, I mean, allowed you to feel good,
Yeah.
because you were exaggerating and doing a lot of things. And at some point, the first system gives the hand to the second system, which you cannot control as much as the first one, because it's less conscious.
Mm.
And it's where your guy, your son,
Mm.
said, "Okay, now it can start, because now you can listen to me,
Yeah.
because you are exhausted, and you have to. You don't have a choice. You have to listen to me now. Your
Mm.
body is ready to explore something else,
Yeah.
and then you can learn. Then you can learn a lot. We call also the second system a learning zone,
Mm.
because you see things from another point of view." And by seeing things from another point of view, you can learn a lot. This is also differential learning. You
Yeah.
can learn things differently by allowing your angle to change, the approach angle to change.
Yeah.
So, and that's exactly what we witness. The first and second system, they are very, very complementary,
You know,
which means you use the same resources as the first one, but in another direction. In
yeah.
another direction. What was starting is finishing, what was finishing was starting. So you explore your same environment, okay, from another point of view, but you don't change the resources completely. You
Mm.
use it completely differently.
You
And that's exactly what you explain.
Yeah, and also that makes me kind of think about the same thing, that I'm sure, like you said, for certain athletes, that would be a really good strategy where, for example, maybe their warm up is much more exhaustive in training, right? Might be much more exhaustive compared to somebody else's because of the adaptation or how you're trying to, train that athlete, and what might be useful for them is maybe in that same way where it's like, hey, again, for example, just like in my scenario, right? It was good for me to be exhausted, then train, than it was necessarily. And again, I know that we've gone into other ways of being able to access them in different ways, but obviously in that way, right? Where if I'm in recovery because I'm just, I'm just trying to get my wind back. I'm just trying to, recover wise, again, energy, I'm really low, all these things. Now I have to explore other options because that first strategy is not useful for me anymore. It can't, like you said, my body no longer can utilize that option because it's exhausted, So I think that that's also an interesting way of thinking about skill acquisition too, as well. In that way, right? Is you can also, as a coach, if you understand the depths, you can design an environment that might, again, including the athlete, where if you know what's going on internally of them, like, hey, when they are in their first system, they actually are, again, like you said, less, we have a hard time accessing 2 or 3 or 4 because they just want to lean. They want to asymmetrically, train just in their highest system all the time. When in reality, again, if we allow that to happen all the time, that actually, like, as you mentioned, they start to lose options, which is not what we, want to do. Or those other options are way less, they are way, they're not as well trained to pick up the slack as you mentioned, where if again, maybe I'm in performance and I need to be, in my third system here, right? And that system's not trained. Well, man, because I always just prioritized, I asymmetrically prioritized one or the other because I consciously, as you mentioned, cognitively, I forced myself to do that rather than letting my body adapt how it naturally would through the training process. With that, I think if you kind of go in there and man-made train our system rather than how it would have adapted and leaning into that complexity and utilizing that a little bit better, I think that's something for us to keep in mind as like practitioners there in that same way, right? It's like, again, we tend to want to lean into their first system. That's if we could even profile them accurately in the first place, right? Which is a whole nother thing, right? If we're not even doing that in the first place, now we're really messy. Now we're, if we only think that's that one system. 2, if we misdiagnose them in the first place. And then 3, we have the philosophy that we have to stay within this and we should never train anything else. You're going to get a mixed bag of results. That's going to be pretty messy for sure.
Yeah, for sure. We can see also the third and the fourth system as a consequence of the flow that happens between the first and the second. If your first and second are working like fluidly together, it will give access to the third and the fourth, and you don't have to train them a lot. You have to let them express when they are ready to do the job. Okay. But you can also train them consciously if you understand how to trigger them, and that will allow you also to build trust on something that is at the beginning not so conscious.
Yeah.
So what I would tell the people or the coaches listening here, first of all, as an advice, warm up system. I don't know about the habit in baseball, okay, but as a national coach in Switzerland, warm up system in a game in sports, it's important, especially if you have kids, of course, but also with all the people. The warm up has to target the attention system. You have to raise attention in a warm up. Of course, the body temperature and the body will move and everything will go there. But if you raise the attentional system, the awareness of being online with your body and environment, you will reduce injuries. If you only train body temperature and body movement, and
Yeah.
the awareness is not here, you will have a lot of injuries,
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
what create coordination is the awareness of the present moment, the attention system. So make the warm-up fun and game-like for the kids. If it's fun and game-like, the attentional system, the awareness go woo, to a very, very high level. And those people, after when they're going to train, they will have less problem and will have much higher efficiency because they are here. They are here.
Mhm.
They're completely here, 100% here. They are not
Yeah.
somewhere else. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's very important. I witnessed that during 30 years by playing, by doing things that are fun. And I mean, game like serious game like with points, you can play with points and everything, but I reduce the physical thing, but I
Mhm.
have a game, and by doing this I avoided a lot of problems,
Yeah. No, yeah, I really like that. Yeah. So no, I think all of that is, again, all these different layers for us to kind of keep in mind from that side. I know that you guys are still working more and more too I got my book actually sitting right here. So yeah, I got my book sitting right here too as well. The English version that you got to me. I know that you guys are looking into producing those for here in the States and things like that as well. If people want to get more resources or lean into some of that. Yeah, give us the update like on the book, and then also give us an update on some of the events and resources that you have available for everybody.
Yeah, of course. So we opened beginning of September. We opened a French speaking channels that you can, with now the artificial intelligence, you can also already flip the voices to English and
Mm,
direct translation, so you won't have to have information a bit quicker. We will open an English channel beginning of January. Okay, with the new podcast we are filming and mounting,
mm,
and of course we will organize. The book will be published, I mean, 2026 for sure in
got it.
English, and spread out through the Amazon system. And we are now also having courses in English in London in I think April and May or something like that. And then will have courses in the States during the summer. So
Perfect.
the information will be available on our site, which I will give you also maybe the link,
Yeah.
everything, so you can put them.
Yeah.
And then see, they can always go on the actiontypes.com and actiontypes.org to have more information and ask questions for sure. We will answer as quick as we can, of course.
Yeah. No, of course. Is there anything else too that you wanted to talk through and make sure that we hit on specifically too? I kind of wanted to give you the ground. I was asking you a bunch of questions, but is there anything specifically too that you wanted to touch on that we didn't get the chance to touch on yet?
So maybe I will go through the 5 points of our manifesto,
Yeah.
which is something we wrote, Action Types Approach Manifesto, because of the tendency of people to go into that world of preferences
Yeah.
with not respecting what was at stake. Okay.
Mhm.
And it's important for people to understand. So the first principle is emergence, so movement, okay, emergence and intention, rather than expectations and objectives. Okay, so coaching encourages, of course, exploration, clarification of deep-seated intentions, without getting bogged down in rigid expectations. That's the problem. Okay, it's about allowing answers, paths to emerge naturally, and that's important. Naturally, in line with your conversation's partner aspirations, which means when you are coaching, you need to be with the other and not against them, of course. And for that, you need to understand, as you said before, to understand how they function, okay, and respect their natural functioning, okay. So by coaching the intention, you learn when they are ready, when they are not ready, and you will witness what they do. But the main point is we help people to build their own internal model. Okay, they will have a model which is linked to their way of functioning, the natural way of coordinating their movements, that will create their internal reference, like a compass, north, south, west, east, that will allow the four systems to do their job. I have an internal model. I don't use external model. Okay, I may be influenced by a lot of models, but it doesn't mean I can do that.
Mhm.
And not
Yeah.
even at all the time. I may do that at some times, but not all the time. So
Yeah.
I need to build my own internal model, because if I'm autonomous, I can relate to that model, and it will help me create solutions that I need.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you're
And
saying
then,
you're saying from there, for example, for our audience, again, like watching somebody else's baseball swing could bring you information, and there might be pieces of it that you can take in that you're capable that actually make you better. But trying to be exactly them, again, their body has organized for what's best for them. So trying to model them exactly is probably not, the greatest route to go, rather than, yeah, you can learn things from anybody, but at the same time, you're an individual and you have your own internal systems. Yeah.
you need to create your own path.
Yeah.
You need to accept and respect your own differences.
Mm.
Okay, you will not be somebody else, so better be yourself. Okay,
Yeah.
that's important. The second system, or the second point of the manifesto, is what we call simple physical solutions rather than complex cognitive strategies. Okay, simple physical solutions that will help you develop your autonomy, and rather than overthinking and developing too many cognitive burden. Okay, because you can see golf, for example, all the people that are giving you a lot of information, and you don't know what to do with that, of course. So
Mhm.
that's also something
Can
that the
you,
coaches have to be aware of.
yeah, I was just saying,
Reduce information and allow simple physical solutions to appear.
when you say, uh, can you give an example of that, or kind of like a metaphor of how that would practically, or more of like a practical layout of that? So, yes, as you mentioned, like someone just constantly giving you a bunch of cues, this, that, your right pinky toe, your right eyelash, like all that stuff. But when you say simple physical solutions, like what contrasts those two for me so that people can understand that a little better?
Yeah, okay. So let's create an example here, maybe for to make it clearer for the people. Okay, I'm not a baseball guy, but I can imagine. Okay, that you are maybe throwing a ball to a guy that is trying to, how do I say that,
Yeah.
hammer the ball,
Yeah. Strike it. Yeah.
strike it. Yeah, strike it. Okay, uh, you may put the attention of the kid to some details of about what you want.
Hmm.
Okay. And you need to understand that the person will have to think about those details, and will have to integrate the details cognitively into the system. Okay. And of course, if those details they are not aligned to what the body can simply do, the people will stay in their cognitive layer, in their mind. They will stay in the mind, and the alignment will not be here.
Mm.
Okay. So that's one point. And if you want that simple physical solution, it means that, okay, I'm coach an intention, which is, for example, okay, try to put the ball there. Okay, try to put the ball there. You may give like a cue, like you give when you want something special to happen, like differential learning, and trying to create a constraint. You can do whatever you want,
Mm.
but create a clear intention and witness what kind of simple physical solution is happening when the person is striking the ball, which
Mm.
means look at what you are doing. Look at the balance system. Is it balanced, for example? Are they losing balance when they're trying to do this? Okay, and I'm going then to simplify as I can the information, so that the intention can be realized, okay, in a balanced way. If for example, let's make it even more concrete. if the person is standing, your kid is standing and listening to you talking to the person, okay? You're listening to your coach. The person is standing. Try, for example, to have a relaxed state. So try the kid to be as relaxed as possible, okay? So confidence with the coach, everything will allow that relaxed state, okay? And confidence with the coach is, of course, very, very important here, okay? If you see that their posture is quite stable, okay, which means they will fluctuate, the posture will always fluctuate a little bit, okay? Because you cannot stay still, anybody, especially a kid. They will fluctuate a little bit, okay? But then when you give the information, if you see that they are fluctuating a lot, okay, that means they are not ready to do whatever you say.
Mm-hmm.
You need time for the person to let the body stabilize somewhere, have a little fluctuation, but not a big fluctuation.
Yeah.
Okay. So just by witnessing the fluctuation of the posture, you can see if what you are telling them is integrated right away into the sensory-motoric system or is staying on the cognitive level.
Yeah.
If it's staying on the cognitive level, the system, the person will, like in the army, oh, okay, I'll obey what you're saying, but the body will move a lot because
Yeah.
they are staying here.
Yeah.
If they can put that in their body, they will be stable.
Mm-hmm.
They will be, and if the coaches are able to trust their observation skills, okay, they will find what cue can trigger the simple physical solution.
Mm.
And that will allow them to reduce the amount of information, of course, and just coach the intention more and not the action. The
Yeah.
problem is people go for coaching the action. And
Yep.
if you coach the action, you can see that people will move a lot because it's staying here and they cannot integrate what they are saying because they cannot do that naturally. But
Got it.
if your cue is aligned with what they are ready to do, they will not move a lot. They will say, okay, I go, I do. Okay.
Mm.
So they don't have to think. Okay. If what you say make them think is not good.
Mm.
So
Got
you
it.
have to find cues that doesn't create a blockage in the thinking system.
Got it.
And that you can really witness by observing how they move. Okay. That's
You
not
got it.
difficult to do. Huh? You just ask them to stay still. You give them a cue and you observe that they are moving a lot. And
Yeah.
that means they are here. They are here. They're not
Yeah.
here.
Got it. Okay. And then what's number 3?
Okay. So number 3 is individual autonomy. We're looking for autonomy. So rather that we call dependence on what we call external advice. Okay. It's why also sometimes it's much better the coach doesn't know and that the coach is asking the person, what do you think here? Or what do you feel here? Okay. And we have to create a new culture where the player is part of the training,
Yeah.
is a living part of the training with more let's say more allowing the person to give practical ideas that are emerging from the fact that he's really incorporating what he's doing.
Yeah.
Okay, so why not doing this? Why not doing that for me? I would love to do this. What do you think? Okay, we can ask them to propose something and not just passively just witness and wait for the coach to tell something. Okay,
Mm.
so if you want autonomy, I don't have to look to the solution always outside. I have to look inside to the solution. And the kid can do that also. He can close the eyes, imagine what was said, and feel if it's stable or not. Same thing.
Mm.
Okay. So they need to increase their awareness, their body awareness. Okay. And the body awareness comes from trust and from the fact that I know I have the solution. I know that in my 4 system, one of them will do the job. And I
Mm.
don't know how, but I know that if my intention is clear enough, I can do that. I can do that. Okay. But if I go for details and exaggerating, forcing things, and too many cognitive burden, then of course the things are not stable, and I will lose myself in my trials. I will completely not be coherent with who I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so that trust in myself, I think, is built also during training.
Yeah.
Okay, by not having always an outside solution. I'm not relying always on the coach. It's important. It's an important person because I need a coach to have
Mhm.
that external sight, external view, and at the same time, I need to be part of the deal,
Yeah.
not only the tool for the coach.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm a person. I need to be to increase my autonomy. I need to increase my ability to be part of the training. And that also by proposing sometimes something. Okay.
Yeah.
And challenging the coach, maybe challenging the coach at some point.
No, yeah, I agree. Okay. What's number 4?
Okay. Number 4 is what we call adaptation to context. The one I already gave was
Mhm.
adaptation to context. So bodily and contextual intelligence. Okay. So this is trying to let solutions be a normal product of my way of adapting and not having only ready-made solutions from the outside. Okay, and that's something that will allow, in fact, each situation that is unique to be used 100% in terms of my ability to trust what is coming, trust my way of integrating information, trust my way of transforming the intention into an action. Because for us, there are no ready-made solutions. Okay, what we create is tailor-made responses. Okay, adaptation to each moment and to each individual. So general solution, they don't exist for us. They don't exist. We
Mm.
have only individual solutions. Okay, we
Yeah.
have general principles. We have general principles, of course,
Yeah.
but at the same time, we don't have general solutions,
Yeah.
which
So
is a big
so
difference.
fleshing that out, like for example, it could be like, you don't have to move this way, right? Like there isn't this blueprint of exactly how you need to move, and this is the model. You need to move like this, right?
Yes.
But what you are saying though is there is principles across the board. Like, for example, we'll talk about like moving from the middle or something like that, right? That would be a principle that might, be across the board. Now, again, whatever that is for individual or what that cue is or however you name that principle, it's something different. But, for you, basically blocking that out, that in the sense of, again, everybody's going to move individually. They're going to express it differently. There's a different, they don't need to move exactly like in our sport, Barry Bonds or Albert Pujols or whoever, fill in the blank with athlete there. But there's principles maybe between all of those great athletes that are very similar. And those are things that we could try to incorporate.
Yeah, 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 that's it. And the last one, we already talked about it a little bit during the podcast, is what we call confidence and expression. Confidence and expression, rather than what we were doubt and inhibition. Okay, so building confidence is also understanding that in order to increase that confidence level, I need to trust my ability to experiment. Okay, intention, action, experiment, knowing that my perception action cycle will help me, okay, stabilize whatever needs to be stabilized. Well, okay, so what we have a relap principle. We have some principle that are like uh, respiration, so breathing in and out, respiration,
Mm-hmm.
relaxation. The fact that you trust is allows you to relax. Okay, so maintain a level of muscle tone that is not too low or too high. A muscle tone that is adapted to whatever you you need to do to who you are. And then this will create also a release in your system, which is availability. You becomes available to whatever comes. So this adaptability that we were talking about before. And then, of course, um, after that, we will have performance, which is an outcome, a unique byproduct of those initial conditions. The fact that you can breathe in and out very freely. There's no blockages. You can do whatever you want. Okay. We know that some people are better at breathing in and acting. Some people are better at breathing out and acting. Okay. You relax, which means you trust yourself and you create that availability. So the openness of that perception action cycle, taking information. Okay. Like that. And then the product is a performance, and that performance is a logical consequence of what you did just before. And understand that that performance is unique. Okay, is sustainable because it's an ecological answer, or it's an ecological byproduct, but it's a unique thing. What you can recreate are the conditions with the breathing in out, respiration, relaxation, let it go, let it flow, okay, state. But the performance, the outcome will be unique. You cannot recreate the performance. You create another performance. What you recreate is the trust, the confidence, the fact that you express yourself from your heart, and you are here online with whatever comes. Okay, and that allows the fact to have that cascade of things up to the performance, which means an adapted movement to whatever problem I'm facing. Okay. And at the same time, remember that the performance is very fragile. Okay. We are talking about robustness. Performance is a very fragile thing. Only a small little detail can completely kill the performance. So it's why I need to understand what do I need and how do I function, because if I can recreate the conditions at the beginning, which will always be different, but the fact that I have that kind of meditative state to let my natural movement flow and create the performance, then of course I will perform more often.
Yeah.
It will be always different, but I will perform more often. And
Yeah.
that's the fifth system.
Yeah. Yeah. No, love it. Okay. No, yeah, I think that those are again, like you said, always like, core elements, for coaches to kind of keep in mind, with all those and like that integration between all of them. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And again, if you guys want, more information and a lot of those things as well. First off, obviously, as you guys know too as well, it's just like my experience also with Petronas too, is there's so many layers, and also, you're always trying to get to learning and leaning into complexity so that again, you can kind of come up. I always say you have to go deep so you can come back to the surface, where it's like you got to go deep into all these layers. And then that all kind of forms how you coach when you're in a moment. The player doesn't need to know all the things you know. Your job as the coach is all these things so that you can coach better, and I think that that's a different perspective. A lot of times people think, well, again, I know all these things and I'm going to go into, the athlete doesn't need to know all those things. And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean that you as a coach don't need to know all those things. They don't need to know. I would say that with it as well. Like they might need to be able to drive the car, and your job is to help them learn how to drive the car. But you're the pit crew. How it all comes together, all the pieces X, Y, and Z from that side. And then their job is just to drive the car. The guy that drives the car doesn't need to know how to build the car from scratch. His job is he needs to know how. And there's a lot of guys that know how to build the car from scratch, but that can never drive the car. So that's also, another thing as well. Where everybody's kind of trained to do different things, and they bring different value in those ways. So No, yeah, I appreciate you jumping on with me again. We also did, I think we did I don't know the exact time, but I'm sure this one was also a little longer one too as well. It's okay. Everybody can break it up and listen to it in pieces and, pull information from that as well. We had a lot of really good things from there. No, so I appreciate you jumping on again with us, John. And I'm sure it won't be the last time we do some things together and with that. So, but it's cool to get another one underneath our belt.
Thank you for having me here, and of course, we'll be pleased to keep exchanging with you and your guys.
Perfect. No, thanks again. Appreciate it.